Welcome to another awesome Sunday here at City View. I'm glad that you're hanging out with us. And if you were with us last Sunday, you learned of a little October challenge that we threw your way. It is called the 100 Tables Challenge. So what does this mean? This does not mean that we want each of you to sit around 100 tables with people. What it does mean is collectively, we want to have 100 connection opportunities. So whether you invite a neighbor or a friend that you haven't seen in a while, or someone from church out to coffee or a family dinner, or maybe to go on a walk on the beach or a hike, we want you to make those connections. Because let's be honest, we've all been living that COVID life still in isolation, and we need to break out of that and make some further connections. So we want you to first invite someone to join you. 2, connect with them, put it on the calendar, make it happen. And 3, we want you to share it. So share a picture of you guys being together on our socials. You can hashtag 100 tables. You can also text a picture to 619-569-6869 as well. We just want to see you making those connections so we can beat this 100 tables challenge. Now, the reality is if we all do this, we will exceed that number. So let's do it. Let's get started. It's October 2nd, and we've already started 8 tables for you with Connect Groups. So we're already kind of starting the process already. And speaking of Connect Groups, we have Connect Groups this Wednesday night at 6:30 right here at the church. $5 for childcare if you need it, and bring an Asian dish to share. We're gonna have Asian night and it's gonna be incredible. If you have a child that has not yet been dedicated, we would love the opportunity on Sunday, October the 16th. So whether it's a baby or you've got a 5-year-old or older, it doesn't matter. We would love to celebrate your family and you leading the charge on growing your children up in the faith and in the eyes of the Lord. So we want to celebrate that with you. RSVP for that for each of your children, because it's going to be a special day, and invite your friends and family to join us. But right now, let's get into an awesome message and worship, and I'll see you right after.
There is a shadow that has ever overcome your light. There is no rival that could ever stand against your might. You've always been with us. Every battle you've already won. Yes, we've already won. There is no weapon that has ever left a mark on you. There is no army with the power to conquer truth. You've always been with us, yes. Every battle you've already won. Yes, we've already won. Show me one thing he can't do. Show me a mountain he can't move. He's the God of the breakthrough. Anything is possible. Come on, let's sing. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me what else he can't bar. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Is possible. Come on. There is a kingdom that's advancing at the speed of light, and in his kingdom every dead thing is bound to rise. Oh, God of Redeemer, he is faithful to revive. Oh, he will revive. Come on, sing it out. Show me one thing he can do. Show me a mountain he can move. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. We believe in you, Lord. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me what else he can't bar. He's the God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. Is possible. Hey. All of my fears I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance I turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment and break every chain. All of my fears I will turn into praise. Shake off despair as I sing out your name. A victory dance, I will dance out in faith. I will crush disappointment. Show me one thing he can. Show me a mountain he can move. He's a God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. We believe in you, Jesus. Show me one thing that's too hard. Show me what else he came for. He's a God of the breakthrough, and anything is possible. It's possible. All things are possible with you, Jesus. We believe in you, Lord. Hey. Come on and give him a shout of praise.
Well, hey, church. Welcome to part 3 of our Getting Over It series. I have to be honest with you, I've loved what we've covered over the last few weeks. We've looked at the impact of anxiety and fear in our life. We talked about the weight of comparison and insecurity and the impact that it has on us. And we've been just digging into these bags that we carry into our decisions, into our lives, into our relationships, into our opportunities. And today we're going to talk about one that maybe we try to avoid sometimes, but it's one that you and I have to tackle head on. And today we are talking about anger and selfishness. Anger and selfishness. Now listen, like right off the bat, some of you are going to be like, well, yeah, that's definitely not an issue for me, because if I were to poll every one of you watching today, 90% of you would say, I'm not an angry person. Like, that's not an issue for me. What most of us would say, and I'll own it, I would do the same thing. I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated, right? We would rather project it on someone else or something that's going on rather than to internalize. Like, anger feels like something that's happening in me. I'm not angry. I'm just responding to their incompetence. I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated because they're doing dumb things. I'm frustrated with the way that they're treating me. I'm frustrated with the way that they're acting. I'm not angry. And maybe some of you would respond this way. I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated that my kids take an hour and a half to go to bed every night. Like, I'm not angry with them. I'm just frustrated. I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated that any child under the age of 10, all of a sudden at bedtime is dying of thirst as if they've been navigating the desert. Like, they hadn't drank a drop of water all day, but when it's bedtime, all of a sudden I need a gallon. Right? I'm not angry. I'm frustrated that the person driving in front of me needs 17.5 seconds to make a simple right turn. I'm not angry. It's them and their inability to turn. I'm not angry. I'm frustrated that my boss is so consumed with himself that he misses out on what I bring to the table. I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated that my mother-in-law doesn't recognize that I'm a catch too, right? Like, I bring a lot to the table. I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated that my friends don't understand that my advice is almost always right and their life would be so much better if they just listened to me. On a serious note, some of you are saying, I'm not angry. I'm just I'm just frustrated because I feel like I'm trying to live a good life and God isn't opening the doors for me that I feel like he should have opened by now. I'm not angry. I'm frustrated. And as long as we continue to label it frustration, we can project it on anyone else or anything else or the situation in front of us rather than actually dealing with it within ourselves. But we're going to see here in the series that we make a habit of monitoring our behavior rather than monitoring the true condition of our heart. We would rather watch our behaviors and try to modify our behaviors than actually dig in and understand what's happening below the surface in our hearts. And we act and we pretend and make it seem like we have it all together. But really on the inside, there's areas we're struggling and areas that we desperately need to deal with. So many of the things we've talked already, a comparison and attaching our identity to something besides God and just all of these things, anxiety being a symptom, but not actually the source of what's causing this fear and this panic and this anxiety in our life. Like we've been digging it, and the same thing happens with anger. But let's look at anger a little bit more and get a better understanding of it. Because I believe there's two types of anger. There's extroverted anger. This one would be defined as over the top, yelling, intimidating, controlling, embarrassing, out of control. Like this is the picture when we see anger that we go, oh, no, I'm not like that. My uncle is like that, or my friend is like that, or my parent is like that. Like they flew off the handle. They would lose their cool in the grocery store and start flinging things around and screaming in front of everybody. Like I would never do that. That's the anger that we picture when someone says, hey, are you an angry person? No, of course not. I'm not that kind of angry. But there's a different version of angry. And I think many of us would relate with it a lot more than we would care to admit. There's introverted anger. And this is more like it's quiet. It's masked by moods. It's a silent assassin. But it's just as intimidating and just as damaging as extroverted anger. What does this look like? This introverted anger looks like that husband or that wife that gets angry and they just shut down. They get quiet. They shut down emotionally. They shut down verbally. They control the room by not giving anyone access. They control the situation by not letting anyone in and just completely blocking everyone out. And there's no progress that can happen here. And so they manipulate the home by their unwillingness to deal with anything. They silently manipulate the relationship by controlling the access and by hurting the other person by not ever giving anything back. Now I have to be transparent with you. This is probably one that I deal with more than any in my own personal life, because I'm a very low key, laid back person. So like the idea of me flying off the handle and like punching a wall or throwing something across the room like that. I mean, I'm not going to say never, but it's just that it would take a ridiculous amount to get to that point. But I will, when I get frustrated, when I'm dealing with anger, I will shut down. I will become emotionless. I will become stoic. I will control the conversation by not having the conversation. And that's the polar opposite of who I really am, because I'm full of energy and I'm full of communicating and I want to talk through all the problems and I want that to happen. But when I'm angry, I try to control the situation by me being the only one who can determine whether or not we're going to make progress through this. And then the ridiculous part, the part where I will manipulate it, I will shut down, I will not give anything into the conversation. And then later on when we're dealing with it, I'll tell Lauren, I'm like, well, you didn't try to get me out of my bad mood. You didn't try to break me out of my funk. You didn't try to pursue me enough to get to that place. You just got in a bad mood yourself. And again, it's just like projecting onto her as if it was her fault that I decided I wasn't going to talk. I wasn't going to communicate. I wasn't going to give anything into this part of the conversation today. Right? And maybe that's too transparent. And some of you are like, I thought it would be fun to be married to a pastor. This is the reality of it. There is that extroverted, over the top, yelling, throwing, screaming, out of control anger, but the introverted anger that some of you and most of you face is equally as damaging if you don't actually deal with it. It's not about your explosion, it's about your internalizing. It's about your ability to not give them what they need. So how about you? How does your anger show up? Where in your life are you whiting out the word anger and you're writing in frustration, but really it's something internally that you need to deal with? Where is that area of your life that maybe you're not an extrovert in your anger, but you're an introvert and you're using your anger to control in silent, quiet ways? Jesus responds to our actions, and he communicates and reminds us that, hey, it's not just from the external. It really has to do with what's happening internally. He says in Matthew 15:18, but what comes out of your mouth reveals the core of your heart. We can just stop there. That's an important thing. What comes out of your mouth is revealing, it's exposing, it is saying out loud what's happening on the inside in your heart. So when you say something out loud and you're like, oh man, where did that come from? It came from right here. It came from what's actually going on inside your heart and actually going on inside your mind. You will find living within an impure heart things like evil ideas, murderous thoughts, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, lies, and slander. They're like, man, what a list. But Jesus is saying to us, the source of all of those things comes from the same exact place. It comes from your heart. It comes from what's happening in here. It's not based on what's happening out there. It's not based on what they said or what they did or how they're acting or how they're responding. It has to do with you. I don't know about you, but I don't like that. As we talked about last week with comparison robs us. And what happens is many times we want an effort to protect ourselves or an effort to feel justified. We almost try to rob back. And these emotions, this baggage, it costs us something. Something happens within us. It creates a debt between us and them. It creates a debt between us and God. And so you have to ask yourself, what debt is anger communicating? Here's the big idea. This is what I want you to understand that anger is saying in your heart. Anger says, you owe me. Anger says, I believe I was supposed to get something. I believe that I deserve something. I expect that this is what's going to be on the other side of this relationship or this exchange with you, on the other side of this experience. This is what I expect it to be, and I'm not getting it, and you owe me what I expected. And you're like, Danny, I don't know. I don't feel like that's what I'm communicating. But the reality is, as we dig into this deeper, you'll realize that inside of you, the reason why you feel angry is because you're expecting something and you're not getting it. And so you're communicating to that person through your words, through your actions, through your internalizing. You owe me something, and I deserve what I thought I was going to get. And it doesn't mean that those expectations are always bad. And we're going to talk about those expectations here in a minute. But there was something that you hoped would happen, and it didn't. And now anger has found a place. James, the brother of Jesus, he drops some knowledge on us when it comes to our anger. He says this in James 4:1. What, circle that word, what is causing the quarrels and fights among you? And you're like, wait, James, you messed up. You put the wrong word. It wasn't what, it is who is causing the quarrels and fights among you. It's who. It's my mom, it's my boss, it's my spouse, it's my friend, it's my coworker. James, you missed it. And James would lean over the table and go, that's why we're talking about this. Because as long as you think you're angry with a who, you won't be able to get to the root of your problem. As long as you believe that your anger is centered and focused in on a who, someone who did this, it's them, it's not me, it's not the situation, it's them, you won't be able to get to the root of what's actually happening. He continues, what, not who, is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you? We're not going to like this part. You want what you don't have, so you scheme and you kill to get it. You're jealous of what others have, but you can't get it, so you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And then he drops a bomb on us. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives, your heart, your driving force is all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure. And you read that and you're like, settle down, James. Like, nobody's murdering anybody out here. Like, what are we talking about? And you're right. You may not kill them physically. You may not be trying to destroy them physically, but you might verbally. You're not trying to rob them physically, but you may try to rob them of what they want, what they need. You might try to hurt them mentally. You may play games with them mentally. You might strategically take away something that you know that they need and they desire, just to prove the point that when you upset me, watch how hard I can make your life. Oh, you've never done that. You've never been to that place with your spouse where you know that they want this and they need this, and you say, nope, not today. I'm frustrated with you. We've been there, right? We've experienced this. James may be using stronger language than we would like to admit to, but the damage we hope to inflict is stemming from this place where we're saying, you owe me, and because you owe me, out of my frustration, I'm not going to give you what you need. James lays it out. He makes it as clear as say, our anger stems from the battle that rages within us for what we think we deserve. You owe me. And the reason we get angry is because there's something we're not getting. I should have earned respect from my boss by now. My wife promised that she would do better in this area, and it's still not happening. My husband said he was going to stop doing this, but he still keeps on doing it. I don't think it's fair that I have to go through this and they don't have to go through that. You see what's happening? The root of it, they all have something in common. You had an expectation and you didn't get what you expected. what you hoped for. Internally, you wanted something. And when it doesn't happen, you communicate it through anger and frustration through the lens of you owe me. But listen, when we get angry with our kids, it isn't about our kids. It's about the fact that we're not getting the peace and quiet we hope to get by this point in the day. It's not a who, it's us. When we get angry at our spouse because they aren't giving us the honor and the respect we feel like we deserve, or the love that we expect we should get, or the expression of love that we hope to get by now. It's not them, it's us. It's an expectation within us. We get angry with our coworkers because they aren't giving the same level of effort that we're giving, and we expected them to at least match us. And so there's frustration because we expected something and we're not getting it. Now listen, all of these expectations are not bad. You do deserve to be honored and respected. You do deserve to be loved in the way that a husband and a wife should love each other. You should be heard by people that you consider your friends, that you've poured time and energy and blood, sweat, and tears with. Like, the expectations aren't always bad, but until you get to a place to own that your anger is stemming from something you feel like you deserved or expected, you're going to miss the root of the problem. You're going to miss the root of what's actually happening in your life. You will continue to put it on external issues rather than dealing what's happening in the internal. A broken promise on their side is still a broken promise. But the reality is your anger isn't stemming just from the fact that they did something or didn't do something. It's stemming from your own expectations. One of my favorite pastors, he spoke about anger, and he used this one tool when he and someone were in a heated conversation, and it's so good. He said in the conversation, he would say, "You know what the problem is? I'm not getting what I want." I mean, could you imagine in a conversation with your spouse and you're in the heat of it and you go, "You know what, baby, hold on, time out. You know what the problem is? What? I'm just not getting what I want." And when you verbalize that, it unlocks something in the conversation. It's no longer, I'm projecting on you. The reality is, it's me. I'm not getting what I want. What I want is this. And then we can, in the conversation, evaluate whether or not that want is in the right place. Is that want the right motives? You see, many relational issues stem from a lack of clarity around what is expected. Some of your biggest relational tensions are based on the fact that the other person doesn't really know what you want. They don't know what the expectations are that are impacting you so deeply. They don't even know that those expectations are there. And so when you communicate, "Hey, I'm just not getting what I want in here, and here is what I want," it gives you both an opportunity, it gives you a platform to have a healthier conversation. Okay, well, I understand that you want that, but in this time, in this season, in this relationship where we are, I don't know that I can give that. Or, "Oh, wow, I didn't realize that's what you wanted. I didn't realize that's what you were saying in this." You see what happens? It clarifies what's going on. And sometimes what it does is it leads us to realize that our expectation in this relationship, or our expectation of this situation, we're asking too much, or we're asking it at the wrong time. Sometimes it's a lack of timing. You're asking your husband to unlock and unpack this part of his life in a way that he's never unpacked it. But you're also asking him at a season when work is insane and all the things around him is in chaos, and he just feels like, I just need a support system and something to stand firm on, and you're wanting me to dig into something that scares the mess out of me. Sometimes it's timing. Sometimes we're asking at the wrong time, or we're asking out of a desperate need of ourselves, but we're not considering what we're asking and when we're asking it of the person on the other side. That's why it's important to have these clarifying statements. The reality is that in our faith journey, we're continually having to push ourselves away from selfishness. The reality is where we drift in life, if we're not intentional, we will drift towards our own selfish desires, our own selfish needs. Even if they're good, we will drift to only seeing our own. But when we look at our example in Jesus, Jesus was the person who deserved everything. And instead, he chose us. Instead, he died on a criminal's cross when he did absolutely nothing to deserve it. So if our example communicates to us that, hey, sometimes it ain't about you, maybe sometimes we need to recognize that that debt we're trying to hold over someone is not only damaging them, but it's damaging us. So how do we take some steps? How do we put this in action practically? And I'll give you 3 really quick ways that I believe that you can deal with your anger. And I'm going to be honest with you. The first 2, they're going to feel a little uncomfortable, but it'll be like, okay, I can do that. The third one, it's a beast. All right. First thing that you have to do is you have to identify who you are angry with. You're going to think I'm crazy, but I want you to write down who you're angry with right now. Seriously, write their name out on a piece of paper, in the note section of your phone, type it out in a Word document. I don't care, typewriter, get it written out. And then I even want you to write like what you feel like they did to you. How you feel like they made you feel, what happened in the situation. Like, own it. Own your story. Own the situation. Feel those feelings. Feel what you felt in that moment. Let that happen. Invite God to be present in that pain. Okay? No one's saying to push this off. Own what happened there and why you were angry, why you were frustrated, why you were hurt, why you were upset. Write it down. And then I want you to determine what they owe you. Right next to that section, where you got your name, got their name, you got what they did to you, the situation. And then right next to that, I want you to write out what you feel like you expected to happen in that situation. Write down what you believe you deserved in that moment, what you expected and what you hoped would come out of that conversation, what you hoped would come in that situation, what you hoped you would feel after going through that, what you expected. Because until you acknowledge the debt, until you determine what they owe you, until you recognize what it is that you wanted to see from the situation, you won't be able to figure out what it is that you actually need within you. So seriously, write it down. What did they do to you? What did you feel? What did you experience? What did you hope would happen? What would have been the appropriate response that you felt like, I was owed this and this is what it should have been, right? Like, discover what the debt is that you are holding over them. And then the last one, most uncomfortable one, the one that is unbelievably difficult. Number 3, cancel the debt. Paul says in Ephesians 4, lay aside bitter words, temper tantrums, revenge, profanity, insults, but instead be kind and affectionate toward one another. Then he asks this question that should resonate with every one of us. Has God graciously forgiven you? Then graciously forgive one another. And I love this verbiage. In the depths of Christ's love. Has God graciously forgiven you? Then graciously forgive one another. Family, the remedy for anger is forgiveness. But Danny, wait. You don't know what they did. You don't know what they did to me and what I went through. You don't know my experience. You don't know, well, what about. And listen, I didn't write it. Trust me, if it was up to Danny, if Danny wrote the Bible, that passage of scripture probably wouldn't have made it. But it's in there. And where I have to go in those moments when I feel angry, when I feel robbed, when I feel like someone owes me because what I gave, what I poured in, what I sacrificed, what I laid out on the line, I deserved this and you still didn't give it to me. When I feel anger, I remind myself, did God graciously forgive me? Yeah, on a consistent basis. Then I probably should return the favor. Even for some of you, this is such an important thing. For some of you, the person that you need to forgive is the person in the mirror. Listen, it's time. It's time for you to forgive yourself because God already has. Because even if you are the person who's receiving the most anger, guess what? Everybody else around you is still carrying that weight. Everyone else around you is still feeling it. Everyone else, if you could feel like, well, I'm just mad at myself and I'm just beating myself up and it isn't about them. They don't owe me anything. I owe myself it don't matter. Anger is contagious. It can't be contained in one person or one situation. It leaks into everything. It spreads. The remedy for anger is forgiveness. And you and I have to understand that anger doesn't stem from what they did. It's not from some external source. It's from what we believe someone owes us. Remember, your anger isn't a who. Remember that your anger stems from a perceived debt, an expectation that wasn't met. And my friend, the only person who has the authority to cancel the debt is you. God can't force you to forgive them, but He can give you the strength to do it. God can't force you to let go of that expectation. God can't force you to give up control of that debt, but He can give you the strength to do it. The question for you and I when we hit these points of anger in our lives is, are we willing to recognize that it has far more to do with us than it has to do with them? And that as we allow God to heal us, anger and frustration begins to lose its power. We can't keep blaming it on someone or something else. We have to own it within ourselves and understand that because God has graciously forgiven us, we have to graciously forgive them too. let the debt go. Get rid of the baggage that you're holding on to, what you believe you were owed in the situation, even if you are right. You holding on to it is only hurting you, and it's only hurting the people around you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, in this moment, I am so challenged that in those moments where I want to white out anger and just label it frustration, would you give me the boldness to just call it for what it is? God, that feeling of being robbed, that feeling of someone owing me something, an expectation that wasn't met. God, maybe for some people that anger, it's pointed directly at you. Because there was an expectation, there was a hope, there was something that was supposed to be on the other side, and they feel like you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. God, would you turn their hearts and their attention back to what we've learned today? That we would lay aside bitter words and temper tantrums and revenge and profanity and insults, and that we would turn to those around us with kindness and affection, that we would understand that you graciously have forgiven us, and we can graciously forgive ourselves and graciously forgive those we feel owe us. Help us to recognize the root of everything that we do. It isn't our behaviors, but it's what's actually going on in our hearts. God, help us to remove anger from the throne of our heart and allow your grace and your mercy to sit there instead. We love you. We thank you. We pray all of this in the strong and the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
I think it's such a great reminder to evaluate the true state of our hearts so we can get to the root cause of our anger. I think many times we have unresolved anger or bitterness or resentment against a person, but we haven't done the inward work to see what it is that root cause of anger is actually coming from. And so I hope this week that you'll spend time focusing on that to evaluate your heart, evaluate any anger or bitterness you may have in your life, and how you can get to the root problem to help resolve that. This week, I read this quote from Augustine that was so great, and it has to do with giving. And it says, God is always trying to give good things to us, but our hands are just too full to receive them. And how true is this when it comes to our giving? The Bible talks about when we give, he'll give us things back, and it'll be more than we could ever expect. But we get our spending habits a little out of control, right? We hold really tightly to everything that he's provided for us, that we don't loosen our hands enough to give back to him what he's already given us. And the thing is, when we let go and we give to God, he exceedingly above all that we can ask or think gives that back to us and more. And so as you're thinking about giving, or maybe giving may be a challenging thing for you, we challenge you to start somewhere. Start small. And we know that God will provide in a big way for you. As always, you can give online. You can start recurring giving, which is amazing too. It's one less thing that you have to do throughout the week to remember to give. But we are so grateful for your generosity. And it not only benefits the church and the community, but it will benefit you in an incredible way as well. Remember 100 tables starting this month. So invite someone to go join you for coffee or dinner, whatever it may be. Connect groups this Wednesday night at 6:30. We hope to see you there. And if we don't, we'll see you on Sunday. Have a great one.